Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us this evening. Here to introduce our speaker tonight and our series. So again, my name is Jennifer Summers with Wisconsin Center for Wildlife, and you are here for celebrating 50 years of excellence, UWSP's College of Natural Resources. And this is part of our Spring Seminar Series, and tonight we are featuring our very own Dean, Brian Sloss. Now, before I get on to introducing Brian and his talk tonight, I would like to go through a few acknowledgements. This was co-organized. This seminar series was co-organized by Wisconsin Center for Wildlife and the College of Natural Resources. I'd like to give a special thank you to Stacey Ellen Bonnick for all of her help in making this seminar series a reality. She helped with a lot of promotion and helped with a lot of helping us coordinate and contact speakers. And also, I'd like to thank the CNR faculty, discipline, and department coordinators. All these folks, we reached out to everyone to help us find alumni, and we reached out to them to help us find people to speak in this seminar series and to help us with this celebration. So I'd like to thank all of those folks for their time and their willingness to contribute and to participate. Lastly, we have an agreement with our local tribes. We like to do this every time we have a public gathering, and this includes virtual gatherings. So I'm going to take a moment. We recognize the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point occupies lands of the Ho-Chunk and Menominee people. Please take a moment to acknowledge and honor the ancestral Ho-Chunk and Menominee land and the sacred land of all Indigenous peoples. So this is a final seminar in our Spring Seminar Series, which began back in February, and we featured alumni from all of our different disciplines in the College of Natural Resources. And so if you're interested in seeing any of the recorded talks, all those seminars are available on our YouTube channel, on the College of Natural Resources YouTube channel, and they're also available at our website at uwsp.edu/WCW. So please, if you'd be interested in any of those, please take a chance to go look at those. And without further ado, I would like to pass it along to Scott Hengstrom, who is the director of Wisconsin Center for Wildlife, to introduce our speaker tonight.
Thank you, Jennifer. It certainly is my pleasure to introduce Brian Sloss, our current Dean of the College of Natural Resources here at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. To give you a little background on Brian, he has a bachelor's degree in ecology, ethology, and evolution from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. He has a master's degree in biology from Western Illinois University and a PhD in zoology from Southern Illinois University at Carbondale. Brian joined the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point in 2002 as an assistant leader of the Wisconsin Cooperative Fisheries Unit, the Fisheries Research Unit, and there he established a molecular conservation genetics laboratory that continues to be a key partner with many state, regional, and national agencies. In 2014, that's the year that I came here, Brian Sloss became the Associate Dean for the College of Natural Resources, where he was involved in the management of all research, outreach, and extension activities within the college. And then in 2020, Brian became the Dean of the College of Natural Resources, and very shortly had to deal with some trivial issues, such as budget cuts, a new chancellor, and a pandemic. Today, Brian will be speaking to us about the College of Natural Resources at 50, where we have been and where we are going. Brian.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Jennifer. Can everybody see my screen okay? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
And it's moving along. Okay, just making sure our technical things are in order. I'd also like to thank Scott and Jennifer for devoting this year's colloquium, WCW colloquium, to the 50th anniversary of the college. We think it is definitely a milestone to celebrate, and despite the challenges that we face in the world today, we're proud of who we are, where we've come from, and where we're going, and we thank you for attending here today. Before I go too much farther into my talk, I do want to take a quick, brief moment to thank Stacey Bannock, Jody Hermson, and Brenda Lackey for putting up with, between technical issues, they've heard this talk about 14 times over, and me coming out of my office and going, did you know that this happened 25 years ago? They've been great partners for me and have just been wonderful in me putting this talk together. So without further ado, I'm going to take you on a history story tonight. It'll have a little bit of foreshadowing in the future on the back end, but primarily I'm going to focus on where we've been and where we've come from. Partly because I think it's really important to know our foundation and how we came about and why we came about. And partly because it's just a really cool story. And I hope you feel that way by the time we're done with this. So 75 years ago, Fred Schmieckley and others established the nation's first conservation education major at what was then known as Wisconsin State Teachers College at Stevens Point, a regional campus here in the Central Sands known as Central State. Schmieckley originally came to Stevens Point in 1923 and expanded what was at that time a single ag course into a full curriculum and ultimately this first major. Throughout the 40s, 50s, and 60s, the faculty grew into a Department of Conservation and ultimately a Department of Natural Resources. Concentrations in forestry, soils, wildlife, and fisheries were established. Throughout these times, a focus on applied field-based experiences was developed, a practice and philosophy that is still critically a part of our success. Here you see pictures of a group of students checking out an outdoor raceway, and Bill Sylvester right here in the corner, then a forester with the Wisconsin Conservation Department, hosting one of Fred Schmieckley's field trips in Eagle River. Sylvester officially joined the CNR faculty later that decade in 1969. Other key aspects of our modern day curriculum took root in the 50s and 60s. The conservation curriculum expanded and diversified. The summer camp interdisciplinary skills education was initiated as a critical aspect of the curriculum in 1963. By the end of the 60s, 14 years after the founding of the department, it had grown to a whopping 900 majors. It was at this time that the roots of the modern environmental movement are really coming to focus. So, and those same roots and foundational issues of the 50s, 60s, and 70s are really at the core foundation of our collegiate founding. The 50s and 60s were an active time and especially focused on land management and conservation of resources. With a renewed interest in outdoor recreation after World War II, numerous federal acts and state funds were founded, establishing national hiking trails, riverways, various other outdoor recreation activities. Rachel Carson published Silent Spring in 1962 and vaulted pollution and toxicity concerns into the general public sphere. Smog and air pollution became a constant, apparently at that time, chronic problem. Water pollution and disasters such as the Santa Barbara oil spill and the Cuyahoga River literally burning shocked the nation. An awareness of our place, small place in the greater universe and the fragility of our world set in when seeing our Earth for the first time from space. All this and more brought us to the 1970s, which is where our college and our modern mission took shape and began. 1970 was a watershed year in conservation and environmentalism. U.S. Senator Gaylord Nelson, seen here, and a wide range of activists and citizens organized the first Earth Day as an environmental teach-in. Meanwhile, the conservation faculty, staff, and students of the College of Natural Resources had been working diligently to develop what would ultimately become the College of Natural Resources. Then University President Lee Sherman Dreyfuss, a future governor of Wisconsin, stepped forward to establish 2 professional studies colleges on our campus. This was the founding of our current College of Professional Studies, and of course, us, the College of Natural Resources. The CNR was separated as its own college because President Dreyfuss recognized the critical demands and responsibilities of our graduates in addressing the state and nation's rapidly deteriorating environmental condition. In another very fortunate and instrumental move, Dr. Dan Traynor was named the first dean of the College of Natural Resources, a role he would hold till 1988. The first generation of CNR, formerly as a college faculty, reads like a who's who of Wisconsin conservation and natural resource education giants. The growth in the 70s of our college was remarkable. To say the timing was impeccable would be an understatement. Dreyfuss stressed the responsibility for our environmental and conservation future justifies and requires the kind of status and support we are giving it, us, the CNR, as a separate and autonomous college. I believe he would be very proud of what we would have become. I also think it's very important to point out we were very lucky to have at that time a leader in the college that actually had political aspirations and connections. Without that, I'm not sure if the long vision would have actually pulled us together, but certainly the faculty, students, and staff were pushing to get there. Once we became a college, we started growing. We had already been growing. 1972 saw the paper science department become a key element of the College of Natural Resources, an engineering program focused on the chemistry and process of paper making. The program was led by Department Chair Doc Kusurik. As a forest product and water resources product field, the paper science department was a natural fit in the CNR. This program is a key education and training program for the paper industry and has been part of our sustainability and resource management focus from the earliest days. Here you see Doc right here in this picture in the middle with the first 4 graduates of the program in 1973. Next comes the Wisconsin Cooperative Fishery Research Unit. For those of you that know me, you knew you weren't going to get through the College of Natural Resource History without me talking about the unit. This unit was founded in March of '71. I bring it up here in reality because of its role in recognizing the college's importance. This is a cooperative between then the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, now it's the U.S. Geological Survey, and the Wisconsin DNR and the college. And its role of the co-op unit is to conduct research in cooperation with all of these groups. The co-op unit, when it was stationed here, was a clear recognition that the new CNR was a destination program. The majority of the unit programs throughout the nation are in land grants. And Wisconsin's wildlife unit was stationed in Madison. However, the new CNR already had enough recognition and clout to have the federal agency agree to split the unit, a rare arrangement in the program. Dr. Dan Coble, seen here, was the original unit leader and oversaw the founding and continual growth of this program. With the ink not hardly dry on our founding, our faculty began study away programming and education that would solidify us as an international presence. Milo Harpstead led the first study away program trip to Puerto Rico in 1972. Later that year, Bob Engelhardt and Jim Newman led the first European International Resources Program trip to Germany. Our study away programs and their presence has become a key facet of our college throughout the years. In those early days, we were located in parts of Old Main and Nelson Hall. In 1973, the new College of Natural Resources building was completed, with the Senator Gaylord Nelson headlining the dedication event. It looks kind of funny here without our iconic mural on the side of the wall. Plus, a lot of those trees are different. If you notice, there's a street running in front here. So campus certainly has taken on a different look. But don't worry, the iconic mural comes in 1985. But when we think about the College of Natural Resources, what would we be without our field stations? Luckily, the early College of Natural Resources didn't have long to find out. In our first field station was Schmieckley Reserve, a then 127-acre reserve on the north end of campus. In 1979, Lake Jonas was formed when Century's home office required significant fill for development. Now here's something you don't see anymore. Swimming in Jonas and an entire landscape around it where trees don't occur for a long time. This is a little more like it now. And with modern development and new initiatives on the north end of campus, Schmieckley is a reserve and a field station that will continue to grow with the college into the next 50 years. In 1975, the College of Natural Resources leased Camp Chickagami, and it became Central Wisconsin Environmental Center. Rick Wilkie, seen here in this picture, served as the original director. Years later, and many developmental projects later, SWES continues to provide K-12 environmental education, outdoor training, and even keeps Rick coming back for more whenever he's back from Florida or not on a dog trail. Last but not least of our field stations was Treehaven. In 1978, Dorothy and Jacques Villiers donated 960 acres to the College of Natural Resources. This donation changed the direction of our summer field experience by becoming Treehaven. After much infrastructure build out, Treehaven officially opened as the host site of summer field experience, previously held at Clam Lake, in 1985. Today, Treehaven is still our summer home for summer field experience and has grown into a multifaceted, natural resource focused education and training center. Next, in the development of the College of Natural Resources was our relationship with UW Extension and our build out into explicit efforts to embrace the Wisconsin idea. The Wisconsin idea is, as the name implies, a Wisconsin thought, whereby the boundaries of the state are what we aim for. Our goal is to use the education, the abilities, the skills of the university system to benefit its citizens. Very much an extension related activity. UW Extension Lakes Partnership was formed in 1980 and it was established by Dr. Lowell Klessig, who served as its first director. This represented the start of a longstanding and current partnership with UW Extension, which includes joint funding and investment of outreach programming to Wisconsin citizens throughout the state and beyond, starting our structural and programmatic pursuit of the Wisconsin idea. This path has led to ongoing development of extension and outreach centers throughout our college. A pathway that has led throughout the next 40 plus years to development of these centers here and many more that are on the docket and we're trying to develop out. We're very proud of our efforts to get there and the number of people that we've been able to reach outside of the walls of a traditional academic or college education. In 1988, Alan Haney became the second dean of the College of Natural Resources, replacing the inaugural dean, Dan Traynor. During Alan's tenure as dean from 88 to 97, the college named 3 distinguished professors, sponsored the establishment of the Wisconsin Center for Environmental Education. Dean Haney had the vision to hire a cultural diversity coordinator. He attracted new gift support to the college, added hundreds of acres to the college's existing holdings at Treehaven and Schmieckley, instituted enrollment management, and established a master's degree program in international resource management. Dean Haney also oversaw a $10 million addition, enlarging the building's area by 50% and adding the wood utilization lab on the north end of campus. Here, this looks a lot more like what most of us are used to seeing. No road running between the building and the sundial, and our mural, which was completed in 1985. Another big thing that Dean Haney did was he supported Professor Christine Thomas in founding a national outdoor skills program for women and becoming the first female tenured full professor in the college. Becoming an outdoors woman would go on to take on international status and prominence in educating and training outdoor skills for women. In addition, during Dean Haney's time, the Wildlife Society, Society of American Foresters, and our American Water Resources Association student chapters were named the best in the nation, a role that we're pretty proud of the fact that we continue to win these types of awards regularly to this very day. Dean Haney and PS&E Department Chair Larry Graham secured the donation of our Mead Witter Foundation pilot paper machine by the SD Warren Paper Company, after which Dean Haney helped secure the funding and support to build the PS&E Process Engineering Laboratory in the Science Building. This paper machine is the fastest student-run paper machine in the world and provides our graduates with real-world hands-on experience and opportunities, making them among the most sought after in the industry. After Dean Haney's 10-year tenure as dean of the college, Victor Phillips succeeded him in 1998. This is a really cool picture showing the three, at that point, the only three deans of the College of Natural Resources, Dean Traynor, Haney, and Phillips, with Dorothy Valier up at Treehaven. Dean Phillips championed an entrepreneurial approach to fundraising, partnership building, and collegiate projects that is still alive and well today. Embodying and encouraging faculty and students to share in a think big philosophy, Victor established the GEM Education Center. He was instrumental in strengthening the CNR's outreach education programs, including establishment of the Center for Land Use Education and Watershed Science and Education Center. He also led visioning and strategic planning for CNR field stations, Treehaven, Suez, and Schmieckley, and invested $800,000 in college funds over 6 years to improve technology, programs, and facilities of those field training centers. He was also a key driver of UW-SP's pursuit of sustainability initiatives, a legacy alive and well today in all we do on our campus. But today of all days is a great reason to hearken back to his tenure, because probably the largest impact that Dean Phillips had was his establishment of the CNR Student Research Symposium. Today's Jim and Katie Krause CNR Student Research Symposium, for those of us that attended and participate, and all of you that participated in it, represents another successful year of CNR student success in this largest student-run symposium. We're very proud of our students and our faculty that participate in this activity. In 2005, Christine Thomas became the 4th Dean of the College of Natural Resources. In all honesty, there is absolutely no timeline that Scott and Jennifer could give me that I could actually follow, where I can remotely do justice to the role and impact that Dean Thomas has had on our college. Christine joined our college in 1980 after completing her MS in water resources in the college. She founded our peer advising and student success approaches that today are the envy of campus, if not academia as a whole. Her passion and dedication to both her faculty and staff and our students was and is the hallmark of her 16-year term. As the first female tenured full professor in the college, Dean Thomas often found herself leading the way on whatever issue she was involved with, a trait that I'm happy to inform you all she still does today. During her tenure, the college grew and matured further on the national landscape. The Wisconsin Institute for Sustainable Technology was established. The Waste Education Center building was approved and erected. Extramural grants and contracts reached record levels within the college. That's no small accomplishment, because it's a fact that other than UW-Milwaukee and Madison, the College of Natural Resources is consistently the most productive college of all the remaining comprehensive universities in terms of overall grant writing and funding. Yes, the most productive of all the remaining other colleges other than Milwaukee and Madison. Dean Thomas also brought something that I think is often understated, and that's a business and professional sense and demand to our grant writing, our extramural activities, our intramural activities, and how we lead as a college. Dean Thomas supported the PS&E program as they achieved ABET accreditation for the first time, an important accreditation by basically the preeminent engineering accreditation body in the world, and helped establish the chemical engineering degree in 2015. Christine's development and fundraising prowess is legendary, nearly doubling the number of scholarships in the college and raising more than $20 million over her time as dean. Most of them were part of the great team of Thomas and Steve Menzel. She envisioned endowed support for undergraduate fellows and championed that approach. In 2013, the Douglas Stevens Boone and Crockett Club Fellowship in Wildlife Conservation was established, but she was not done there. She helped secure funding for our first and the university's first 2 endowed chairs, the Douglas R. Stevens Endowed Chair in Wildlife and the Kennedy Groney Chair in Waterfowl and Wetland Conservation. She also secured the first endowed professorship in the college, the Gerald and Helen Stevens Professor of Wildlife. Her national role and service helped secure the first endowed graduate fellowship in the college, the Douglas and Carol Federighi Waterfowl Graduate Assistantship. I could go on and on about the things Dean Thomas accomplished in her time, and I'm sure she's sitting there muted and without her video saying, "You can stop now, Brian." But I will end with this laundry list of her high-level honors and career service she provided at the state, regional, and national level. Why am I doing this? Because Christine Thomas took the position as dean and elevated our college through her activities and her engagement to a national presence unlike any other, a national presence with us at the table as opposed to us presenting. She elevated everything that we do across our college to importance. When I was a federal scientist, I remember meeting the head of the co-op fish unit, or the cooperative research units in general. This was a person who I would just as soon not meet with very often, because if I do as a unit scientist, I'm probably in trouble. But I was blessed to meet with him in good circumstances. And one of his trailing thoughts as I walked away from him at the airport and was going to come home was, "Make sure you tell Christine we all said hi." And that's when I, as a young scientist in the college, realized Dean Thomas is somebody pretty special in the landscape. But more importantly than all of these accolades, and I'm sure inside of her she would agree with this, was her passionate support, defense, and cheerleader, and being a passionate support, defender, and cheerleader for all of her faculty, staff, students. Her love and friendship with the donors to our college, and her approach of being one of the most caring people that I've ever met with, really made the rest of her college and her colleagues feel loved. And that approach drove us to new heights as a college. After serving as Associate Dean of Outreach and Extension for 6 years under Dean Thomas, I was chosen as the 5th Dean of the College of Natural Resources, taking over for her July 1 of last year. Inheriting this position and mission has been the biggest honor of my career, bar none, and one I don't take lightly. I came here in 2002 with my wife, Johanna, hoping to start a successful career with the Co-op Fish Unit. Little did I know then how much UWSP would become a part of who I am. My wife and I have 2 boys, Jonah 15 and Nicholas 12. I can't imagine raising them in any other place than right here in central Wisconsin, and with the CNR as a big part of our lives. I look forward to getting to know all of you here today better as time goes by, especially as we can meet together. What a crazy year it has been. As I sit here, our college has had 2 successive years of increased enrollment, standing at 1,520 undergraduate and graduate students. We have multiple major options in forestry, fisheries and water, resources, resource management, and soils and waste resources, as well as our paper science major, chemical engineering major, conservation law enforcement, and wildlife ecology and management. The state of the college is strong, and we are well suited for the next 50 years, thanks to our wonderful faculty, staff, and students. So we've looked at the past. The present is pretty well known what we're facing. Where are we going? As our college formed and matured, we began addressing the pressing and critical issues of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. These included water pollution and contamination that ultimately led to the Clean Water Act, air pollution challenges that resulted in the Clean Air Act. Lyndon Baines Johnson himself specifically discussed the increase of greenhouse gases and the impacts of our growing economies and populations in his environmental platform. He was talking about global climate change. Biodiversity and extinction threats were being documented in real time, ultimately resulting in such things as the Federal Endangered Species Act and the U.S. engagement in CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. And of course, the stress and strain of societies demand for more space, more resource, more food, more everything, and its infringement on natural areas, risking sustainability of these areas. The key part of our dominant focus of these portions were on our resource management practices of the 60s and 70s. So as we look at where do we stand today and beyond, well, the old adage of the more things change, the more they stay the same seems to be in order. Water quality and contamination issues still exist. Right here in our own backyard, the Central Sands region of Wisconsin has wells that are unsafe due to groundwater contamination. Parts of La Crosse, with immense freshwater resources all around them, have undrinkable water due to forever chemicals. Air pollution challenges remain in our cities and beyond. In fact, one of the interesting things in this COVID pandemic has been the improvements in air and water quality throughout the world when human activity slowed or ceased due to curfews and lockdowns. I'm not sure how many of you were able to see the pictures of LA where you could see forever, whereas you can barely see into the city on most days, or the waters in Venice when we don't have all the human activities and how so many of the fauna were coming back. Climate change, greenhouse gases, and sustainability remain a primary challenge in the conservation and environmental worlds of the future. Biodiversity conservation and extinction crises remain rampant, in large part to climate change and ongoing human demands. And as ever will be the case, increasing demands for growing populations remains a driving force behind the needs for sustainable land use and resource management practices. Now, that is not to say that in this intervening time between our founding in 1970 and today, that we haven't climbed many mountains. In fact, that's the perfect analogy. We've climbed these issues and we've successfully addressed them through innovation, a lot of education and training, and through research and outreach. But like is almost always true with mountain ranges, once we scale one mountain of problems, the next range stands in our way. And the next range often looks very similar to the last, but with new and evolving, sometimes even more complex problems. So the question that we face as we stand here today, celebrating 50 years of success, is how will we deal with this next range of problems? And that will define our next 50 years as a college. Now, it would be the height of stupidity for me to sit here and tell any of you and pontificate about what, for example, forestry will be doing in 40 years, or water. I might have a shot at least fisheries, wildlife, chemical engineering, or the like. That's not my lane. What I can say is that all of our fields will require innovation, drive, confident and ethical research, and a bevy of well-educated, well-trained professionals to continue to face the conservation, environmental, and resource management challenges in the future. To that end, I am extremely confident that the College of Natural Resources, faculty, staff, and students that are here today and will be here in 20 years will help us face the last half of our first century of existence. So instead of sitting here and addressing those, I'm going to take a 10,000-foot view of what challenges do we face as science, conservation, and natural resources goes into the next 40 years. Challenge number one is perhaps the greatest environmental threat and challenge that has faced mankind since the last ice age. Climate change has become a partisan football that seems to define the ethical, philosophical, and moral standard of one group of people versus another. For us to sufficiently address this scientific reality, we must have honest, frank discussions of the issue, fair and accurate assessments, and forecasts of what changes will occur, and innovative leadership from the scientific and social communities to face these challenges. It will require leadership and innovation, confidence and passion, the exact same attributes that the Department of Natural Resources faculty and staff of the 60s had when they fought to be the ones to go headlong at the environmental crises of those decades. That resulted in ongoing education and development of 50 years of conservation, resource management, and paper science and chemical engineering excellence and leadership. Climate change is that 21st century challenge that we face today. It is that mountain. It is that hill that we have to have the audacity to attack. We have to accept the charge and not only be part of the innovative answers to the problem, but incorporating this knowledge and resiliency in our students going forward. That's our role. Our role is to be scientists, research, education, and communication. That's our part. To that end, sustainability science and practice is now synonymous with the future of conservation, resource management, and engineering practice. It doesn't replace the things that we do, but it has grown into our space and our field. Our future as a College of Natural Resources will involve sustainability science in its new form of environmental justice and resource management in all forms as we go forward. Challenge 2 might not seem like it fits here in terms of looking at what are conservation and resource management challenges in the future. But I would argue it belongs here very strongly. Diversity, equity, and inclusivity. Accessibility and fair, equitable engagement is an explicit challenge and goal of every one of the parental scientific societies that our faculty and many of our students belong in. And it's not there because it's the hip thing to do. It's there and it's a goal because it's the right thing to do. So as a leading College of Natural Resources in the world, we must help lead on this issue. Before Dean Thomas retired, we had an interesting meeting with now Secretary Cole of the DNR, who came to us. We thought we were going to get better acquainted in his new role as secretary, although Christine has known Secretary Cole forever. And instead, he came to us with a challenge, and he challenged the College of Natural Resources to help diversify the workforce of the Department of Natural Resources in the state. His statement was one we've made numerous times. We are the workforce development brand of their department. And if we do not have a diverse, equitable, and inclusive student body and faculty, then we will not help them get where they need to be and they're driving to be. You know, that statement hung with me and is stuck in my soul since we had that discussion. And it became readily apparent, you know, that's true of Fish and Wildlife Service. It's true of Forest Service. It's true of all of our fields. It's true of the engineering programs that we work with. We educate and train the next generation. But now more than ever, that generation must represent and lead their communities as inclusive members of those communities, as opposed to outsiders telling them how things should be. This is a CNR priority, and one that we have begun working on with a renewed fever, and an imperative that we are building forward to an EDI action plan later next year or later this year for the CNR. Finally, and maybe the hardest one to directly address and talk about, is truth, scientific integrity, and objectivity. We live in a world where truth, integrity, and objectivity are under extreme assault. Partisan science and subjective facts and interpretations are a challenge to our scientific fields and a threat to our societal norms and stability. As scientists in the CNR, we must follow philosophical and ethical principles when designing our studies. We have to challenge ourselves to collect objective data that will reject our theories or hypotheses or support them on their merits, not on a preconceived notion to try to make sure we're right. This is the scientific principle that all of our students today illustrated in their posters and their presentations. It's experimental design, it's philosophical principle, it's ethics and integrity. We all trained in a decision-making principle. We have all been trained scientifically, I hope, in a decision-making principle called parsimony. This is a principle that sounds fancy, but it's not. In a nutshell, it basically means that the simplest answer is the best and right answer. The more convoluted and crazy you need to get to connect the dots, the more unlikely and improbable that is the right answer. We live in a modern society of non-parsimony logic and alternative facts cherry-picked to support a preconceived notion, not critically developed and consumed. I don't bring this up from a partisan or political statement. I bring this up because it is a threat to conservation, natural resources, and decision-making in a society. We must lead our fields and our students in pursuit of knowledge in a fair and objective manner. We must honor truth and open transparency in our fields and in our practices. We must not shy away from the challenge, but instead we must engage in the issues that face us, not with hesitation or fear of blowback, but with support and confidence in our knowledge and processes, and with dignity and respect to alternative thoughts, but not alternative facts. To do so means we must also ensure through peer review and professional critiques that our processes and knowledge continue to be accurate and well-founded. We must continue our CNR tradition of leading and engaging the issues of the day. We must channel that same confidence, audacity, and even the touch of arrogance that the challenges facing our professional fields today and world are ours to address and fix in our way. That is exactly what led to the College of Natural Resources. Confidence, talent, audacity, and yes, a little arrogance that they could do it. I think after 50 years, they proved they could, and they did. It's our turn to do it and prove it to the next generation. As we continue our tradition of engaging today's challenges through education, communication, and innovation, the CNR will celebrate our 100th birthday in 2070 with pride in a really cool history presentation by some other leader. I couldn't be more proud of the faculty and staff and students in our college. Our bonds go deep. We have a shared mission. It makes our college a special place. That mission has been 50 years in the making and in the founding and in the forging. And it's a mission that the future of the College of Natural Resources carries forward that same mission to new challenges. As I end tonight, I want to make sure I congratulate all of our scholarship winners and outstanding students and our wonderful, generous, supportive donors. We are forever grateful and humbled at your support and our students in program, of our students in program. We hope this is the last year that we have to come to you through this virtual format. However we do this, though, it is consistently an honor to have you support us. A video highlighting our outstanding student award recipients will be released soon on our Facebook channel at UW-SP-CNR. I believe there's time for questions, and I look forward to hearing from you. So thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you very much, Brian. This is exactly the point where you would hear a lot of clapping, I think. And so unfortunately, we're at the, in the virtual world, we don't get that, that positive feedback, but there is a couple of questions, and I will go ahead and start reading these off. So let's see. Sorry, I had to jump back here a little bit. So here's one from Steve Menzel. He asks, Brian, if you could set your own legacy as dean for the next 5 years, what would that look like to you? Or what would you like that to look like?
No COVID. How's that? To just start right there. We'll have COVID in the rearview mirror. Wow, Steve, it's, I hope that I leave a legacy, and I'm going to be a little bit of a sidestep here. I hope I can continue the legacy of the faculty in our college and students and staff, knowing that they have support from their administration, that we support what you want to do. We will be there to help you. We will take your ideas and help you make those happen. One of the questions I know I've asked almost all the faculty and staff that I did annual review with this year is, what can we do for you? What do you need from us? And, all of our faculty and staff understand that what's available is limited to a point, but I hope they know that that was not just a throwaway question. It's really important for us. And I say us, Brenda, our office staff here in the main administration, to know what you need and want, because I promise you, if I can be a small part of you all making happen what you want to have happen, my legacy will set itself without me worrying about what that is, because your ideas are going to drive this college forward for 5 years, for 15, for 30.
Brian, another question, and this one's from Katie Krause. Climate change is a global issue. What can we do to enhance our global efforts?
Great question, Katie, and thank you for being here tonight. Well, we do have an international presence. We do get out and around, and we do have those things. But, you know, I personally am a believer where it starts at home. And you have to take care of your home front before you can take care of everything else. Because I do think that there is a tendency to start looking beyond the fences and kind of ignore your own backyard. So I think what we can do is we can start building, and not start, we can continue stacking the successes that the college is known for on these issues. We can build out more international relationships. I'll give a great example. Rich Hauer, I don't know if you're here, Rich, but 3 years, two, 3 years ago, Rich spent an inordinate amount of time in China working with the Beijing School of Forestry and working on agreements between the colleges. That helps form global bonds. And once, you know, unfortunately, COVID came around at a time when a lot of momentum was coming together. But if we can get there at post-COVID, then the bonds start forming. And, you know, we really do live in an extremely small world. The first picture that I had on my title slide was my wife and I standing on the shores of the Atlantic in Portugal about 14 months ago. First time we've ever gone out of country other than Canada. That doesn't really count. And so I'm not sure how many people are right in our backyard or reporting in from wherever, but they could be anywhere listening to this talk. The world is a small place, and it is a very small place, and we can make it smaller with technology. So I think the big part, Katie, is take care of your home front and then look for where you can make opportunities happen in a broader arena.
Excellent, thank you. This is a question from Sandy. It says, how can one expand the model of obtaining donors to other colleges, to the other colleges on campus? Was this appeal due to the objectives of the college or other reasons? And so she's kind of asking, like, in the way of that Dean Thomas had obtained donors.
Great question. They all have their own way. I will say, I think a number of secrets to our success in donations and in fundraising. First and foremost, it's the people. And I'm sorry, Christine, but I'm going to say it anyway. Christine Thomas and Steve Menzel were very special people at their soul, and good people and good friends and honest people. And so when you meet with anybody, that goes a long way. You can often find common ground around that, let alone a shared mission. The other part is our mission's special. We have a mission as a college. That's not normal. You know, most colleges are large, and you know, that's the reason why we just did a reorganization into schools to where they can get closer to a shared mission. And so I think as those schools in the other colleges mature, I bet they start coalescing around this shared mission approach of bringing people together. And the other part is just go out and do good things, and good things start to happen with you. So that's another part of that equation. When you do good things, when you have this engagement in the community, and when people see the good things and the impacts that you do, you know, this is the greatest program in the world, in my opinion. And I think I have a few of you out there that would share that opinion. So it's you know, that's the key. Become one of the great programs, and then it helps you fundraise.
Here's a question from Ben Reitz. What has accounted for the increased enrollment in the past 2 years? Has that trend been shown by other schools or UW-SP specific? Well,
we have our opinions. We don't have a ton of data, which I would argue is one of the problems in the early days. We were coming off of a high in the college that was based on the recessional period of the early 2000s. And so we went through a period of time. The other part is our campus was not recruiting very effectively. We were using 20th century recruitment to try to put students in seats. And we had a single year blip in our college enrollment that really doesn't make sense. It's kind of an outlier thing. And our university got a lot more intentional about targeted recruitment and aggressive recruitment. And that turned around a lot of things. Simultaneously, our college went along with kind of a 1-2 punch to back that and do similar recruiting efforts in parallel, an effort that we're continuing on. And the other part is we got more aggressive about telling our story and getting out there and letting people know it. You know, there is a part of our history where the college recruited itself. And that made sense when it wasn't a saturated world of information. We live in a 21st century that's blessed with information and cursed with information all at the same time. So it's easy to miss out on the obvious in the sea of all the other information. And so I think, you know, in large part, our college and our university started being much better recruiters and much more 21st century focused. And what happens with a college like ours, it righted itself very quickly in terms of our enrollment numbers, and we continue to go back to our normal high level of enrollment.
Great. So another question from Ben. What challenges are out there in the next 5 years for the CNR that need to be overcome to celebrate 55 years and beyond? Well,
I am an administrator. Funding is probably always, you know, chief among them. One of the things I think, and I may get it a little bit wrong, but Dean Thomas always told me that in her 16 years of being a dean, I think all but 2 years had budget cuts. Well, after a while, it is cumulative and it is devastating. And you get to the point where the capacity to grow and respond becomes less and less. Our faculty have handled it really well. That's part of my responsibility, to help fight for those resources. And hopefully, you know, the other part to remember is we're not a standalone. We are part of a larger ship. And so as LNS, as CPS, as COFAC, as our campus goes, so do we. We're an important part of this campus, but we have partners across the board. So as a whole, our campus needs to excel. And we're getting there. I'm very optimistic with it. So I see that as a major challenge, because in order to do reactions to new problems, you need to have resources to pivot to, because it's not, you know, so let's say we want to start doing more sustainability and global climate change. We're not going to stop doing forestry or fisheries to get there. So we need added resources to react to added problems. So the other option is, instead of waiting for the state to give it to us, which never seems to happen, is we do what Dean Thomas laid out in front of us, and we go after donations and development to get the opportunities and the resources that we need.
Perhaps a related question, and this one's from myself. Considering our limited resources, how do you feel we might best expand CNR's efforts in engagement, outreach, and extension?
I think this is one big part of it. Keep getting them coming to events like this, keep making opportunities available. I think that the best way to increase our engagement in those activities is for the units that we currently have in our college that are engaged in those activities to broaden their horizons and open their doors broader to their fellow faculty and staff. When I interviewed for the position of associate dean 7 years ago, I was asked a very similar question, Scott, how do we expand? And I said, you got about 120 employees in this college that are all willing and in many cases eager to do this, but they may not have a pathway. Those of you that have the privilege of having access to that pathway, let's help open that up. And I think we've done a better job of it. And I think we can continue to grow in that arena and expand our places. I'm going to take Ben's next question. No, I haven't, but my 15-year-old has. So in regards to tackling a large ice cream from Belts. So, but my voice might need one after this.
Yeah, those are certainly impressive. I've never been able to take one of those on myself. So there's another question here from Chris Yankee asking, what do you think we can learn from this pandemic and maybe even incorporate moving forward?
It's a great question, Chris. And I think it's one that you hear a lot of your colleagues, I think, and certainly administrators and higher ed experts talking about. When we say we're going back to normal in the fall, we'll never be normal again. If normal is a return to exact activities. I think that many of you have explored opportunities in alternative delivery mechanisms and things like that. Many of them forced, but you've learned certain things and certain things that are maybe going to stay with you. I know Paul DeRuska and I just did an interview the other day with the Lakeland Times in regards to forestry education during the pandemic. And Paul talked about how, hey, maximizing the impact of my time with the students is a really important new thing that he really wants to focus on going forward and incorporate out of the pandemic. And I think that and many other things. This, for example, I think we're all tired. Scott mentioned he's been on 6 different Zoom calls today. I think most of us would prefer not to be on, more than a handful, maybe, a few fingers on one hand, but the ability to make the world, to Katie's question, to make the world a smaller place and get the minds and opinions and ideas of many, many different people in one spot. I don't know how many are on here tonight. I think at one point we were around 80. And, that's what we have been seeing is, I didn't say that as a brag on me giving a talk. What I'm saying is what I've seen is attendance on things like this are much better than in-person attendance. There's certain activities that do go there. Now we lose other parts. And so I think it's a matter of being balanced in some of these activities going forward. But I think we're going to see a lot of pandemic learning stay with us through time. And Chris, I'll do my best to get you some of those plaid pants. So try to hook you up.
So I don't see any more questions posed here from the group. And I know it's getting close to the 6 o'clock hour. So, and Jennifer usually closes things out, but I just want to say, Brian, if you have an opportunity to take a look at the chat room here, you'll find that there are many congratulatory statements to you, to the CNR, to the faculty, staff, everyone involved, and very much appreciated your time spent here and portraying the history of the CNR and a look into the future. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for attending. I did notice Amber just asked a question about what the fall will look like from a student perspective.
Yeah.
And what I will tell you, Amber, is what our intention is that we are back to, and I say this intentionally with air quotes, normal. And that is classes that have been in-person classes will be in-person classes. And that's going to be our option. We're not going to teach in 2 or 3 different modes, especially in our college. It's a really, really tough thing to pull off. And so that's the goal right now, because that's the edict from President Thompson of UW System and Chancellor Gibson. So that's what our college is pinning our ears back and going after. Otherwise, thank you, everybody. It's a real privilege and it's an honor to be the dean of our College of Natural Resources.
Again, thank you, Brian, so much for joining us. And if you're interested in anybody in the audience seeing a recording of this or sharing it or seeing other videos, again, there's a College of Natural Resources YouTube channel. You can just search for College of Natural Resources, UWSP on YouTube, or you can also find the videos and more information about seminar series at uwsp.edu/WCW. So again, thank you, Brian. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.